Right, I'm going to run through a quick couple of slides on data and the latest news on the MQTT service, and then I'll hand over to Tal. So then, from the data perspective, we've done some additional aggregations. We had a lot of customers asking us, please, 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 can we actually have something a bit more than min and max? That's a little anorexic in 2026. So we've listened to you. We've created quite a few additional aggregations. So you've got a new aggregation function, which supports all of those listed: min, max, average, sum, count, standard, dev, pop, and sample. One thing I do want to point out here is that the additional aggregations and also the additional time intervals are only supported on the new time series collection. At the moment, of course, this is all available to you because this was delivered in Q4 as an API. We are working with Rahul and his team on how to make this available in a nice way in the user interface, because, of course, in order to make it a good user experience, we need to understand whether or not you've got time series collections on your tenant. So another reason to start looking at migrating, if you're on a standard legacy measurement collection, to the new time series collection. And you'll be seeing more features coming out that are focused on that new time series collection. So all good news then from the data perspective. From the MQTT messaging perspective, this is really exciting. We're not quite at GA, we're nearly there. We've been talking about this for a very long time. What I wanted to do in this webinar was just remind all of you, we've done a lot of work on putting out reminders. We've made changelog entries just to remind everybody that the current MQTT service is in public preview, and we have made changes that will potentially break you if you haven't actually altered, for instance, your microservice. The Java SDK will no longer be available. It will instead use the Pulsar API. If you're using the dynamic mapper, that's fine. We worked closely with the dynamic mapper team, and that now fully supports the new Pulsar API for the MQTT service topics. Device isolation, you will no longer be able to publish and subscribe across devices. We looked at really focusing down on the IoT use cases and ensuring that devices can only publish and subscribe to their own topics. There are other ways of actually getting data across devices if that's really required, but from an IoT use case, that is very rare indeed. And it's much easier for our customers to have an out-of-the-box IoT-ready configuration so that you know that your devices, if you have one device that gets compromised, it can't go around all of your other devices and start creating havoc. So that's the reason why we've got very strict device isolation now as the default on the MQTT service. The limits and quotas will be updated. I don't have any information for you at this point. Some of those will be going up. It's not all, oh, we're going to be actually doing even less. A lot of them will actually be going up because of the change in the architecture that we've actually done below the covers in order to achieve quite impressive scaling, where we will actually also have some performance test results for you as part of the marketing and information for when we go to GA. Last but not least, wildcard card subscriptions, as you know, will be supported. They're not there yet. They're not available yet. But for the MQTT service, they will be available. So those are the headlines on really the big changes coming along. Those of you that have already started playing with the MQTT service in public preview, data preparation section. Over to you, Tal.
So just some very quick slides. We spent a lot of time last time on this What's New webinar talking about data preparation, what's on the roadmap for us, what are we investing in. I highly recommend that you go back and view that if you're interested in understanding more about our data preparation component and what's to come from Cumulocity there. But just really quickly today, I wanted to highlight some of the new features in the Dynamic Mapper, the open source tool that Stefan and Christoph internally have been building, which facilitates data preparation today. Right, as we're waiting for the Cumulocity component backed by the R&D team to be built and heading towards that preview release, we do have the Dynamic Mapper available today for all of you to use for any data mapping needs, right? So in Q4 2025, as Jane just mentioned, we have a full support of the new MQTT service for both inbound and outbound data, and the introduction of what we're calling smart functions. Now, smart functions are essentially pieces of JavaScript that you can write your custom code in to do your different mapping as necessary. And the really cool part about the update to the Dynamic Mapper in the last quarter is they now have a AI agent prototype, right? So you can send data to the Dynamic Mapper, have the AI agent write this JavaScript smart function to convert your data into the Cumulocity format, right? It's really quite a cool system. There's been a few demos that we can point you to, but of course, everything is available open source to you. And the last thing that they've done is added an in-UI testing and offline test capabilities, right? So for those, AI generated codes, obviously you're going to want to be able to test that. You can now do that within the UI and do that offline as well, right? So the Dynamic Mapper is available to you. This latest update, of course, is available on GitHub. That's all I want to say, so you don't have too much of me this time. But other than that, I will pass it over to Chris to take you through some of our data offloading.
Thanks, Tal. I'm Chris Furlong. I'm the product manager for the Data Hub product. So this is relevant for anyone out there who's currently using Data Hub. We made some enhancements to how you manage offloading the inventory collection, specifically the inventory collection. Currently, it's monolithic. There's a lot of stuff in there. Some of it's internal. And that sometimes gets us to the point where we start breaching the limits on Data Hub and the technology we're using. So this enhancement is about giving you a more targeted approach to offloading your inventory. So when you create a new inventory offloading, you'll see there's a new set of options available to you that you can use. And basically it splits down how inventory is offloaded. So the first one is all devices. So it's all of the view, it's a view effectively on top of inventory that takes everything related to the device. The next option, and there's lots more details in the documentation, but there's a little tooltip here. The next option is everything to do with your device groups. Then there's a very special case that if you have inventory data that isn't coming from a device or isn't related to a device group, you can tag it with a specific fragment, and this will allow you to address and offload that data you've tagged with is Data Hub included. There's a few more options. There's an all data option, and that will take everything that hasn't been tagged Data Hub excluded. We don't recommend this. And then finally, there's a kind of a catch-all option. Again, not recommended, to get all of the inventory entries. There is one particular special case we need to consider here. That's what happens with an existing inventory offloading. When you have one of those and you come in to edit it, you'll actually see there's a raw inventory collection option available to you, because we're taking everything. None of these views or filtering is applied unless you've built them manually in your offloading job. You can't actually change that because potentially things are going to go a bit crazy if you start excluding data or adding data based on the different options you have above. So if you want more details on this, I'd definitely take a good look at the documentation. This is all broken down in a lot more detail.